Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Natalie. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us today on the CCA podcast. It's a really honor. It's an honor for me to be able to have this conversation with you, given that you're a member of the CCA team, but also that I got to walk with you on your journey to coach certification. So why don't you start by telling people, what you want them to know about you, and then we'll get into a great conversation.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for the invitation. First of all, it's lovely to be chatting with you. I am a Montrealer, and I am now a Montrealer. I'm an ACC certified coach and have been for about 2 years. I came through my course at Canada Coach Academy, and I like to refer myself actually as a human being because I spent so much of my life as what I now call a human doing. I spent some years in corporate, and I can get into that in a little bit, and found coaching after I took early retirement from IBM and absolutely fell in love with it. Going through the course, finding that my own personal evolution escalated in ways that I never would have thought possible. And then having the opportunity to work on this team, to talk to other people who are looking to improve their own lives and help other people. Like, there's no downside to this. So it's been an incredible 3 years. It's actually 3 years this month. So it's been a lot of fun. And I feel like I finally have come home to me.
Yeah, 3 years. That to me, it feels like yesterday, first of all. And we were just talking about how your cohort was the first to go online in the pandemic. Like, we were
Yes.
making those decisions in March of 2020, wondering if isolation was going to stay, and if it was, how are we going to run this program? And at that time, it was a big scramble, right? To get your class online, and we all decided it was a go, and it turned out to be such a gift, I think,
Oh,
for
it was
people. I'll
incredible.
speak for myself. It was a gift to be distracted by learning and growing with a group of really switched on amazing people, but also pivoting. I love deadlines, and I love that like, the more I'm freaking out, the better I am. So I was like, oh my God, get a 13-week course into a 26-week format online. Go, go, go. And so that was really fun to be distracted by that. But that idea of having that during a time of, confusion and uncertainty and isolation was really powerful, I think.
Oh, it really was. And I look at that time as in my personal life as having been a huge opportunity.
Mm.
Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And it was exactly the right time and the right place for me to come to this. And like, three of the ladies and I are still in contact.
Yeah.
Three of us actually meet every Thursday on Zoom still, just to chat about what we're doing. So
Four
there was
years later. That's so
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the incredible bonds forged there. And it's hard not to, because when you're coaching, not only are you learning to help other people, but if your own person is not evolving and you're not learning and growing and crying and laughing, then something's missing.
Yeah. So on evolving, because coaching is all about transition, it's about change. So take us to, down the journey of you becoming a coach. How did you end up here?
That's an interesting story. I like to tell people that I blew up my life. And I kind of did. It was kind of a controlled explosion to an extent, but it was an
I
explosion.
love it.
Yeah. I am originally from Nova Scotia, so I'm a blue noser. I moved here back in 1990, worked with Michelin Tires in New Glasgow actually for 4 years, and then transferred to their marketing and sales division. And I a degree from St. Mary's University in Halifax. I had a commerce degree. I was all about being in the business world and, trying to climb the ladder. And that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Mm.
I was competent. I got some really interesting jobs that I worked. And I met some great people along the way, but I never really felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I like to call it feeling like being a square peg in a round hole. Like, it just didn't quite fit. I got married. I had two wonderful children. They're now young adults. Well, they're in their 20s, both of them. And mom is probably my most important role, although it's not very hands-on anymore. They're very much their own people now. And at one point in time, I left my job to when my youngest daughter was born and stayed home as a stay-at-home mom for 5 years, which was wonderful. I kind of explored that creative side of myself a little bit. I like to paint, started carving wood and doing some things like that, and then went back to work at one point. It was, again, where luck is where preparation meets opportunity. My youngest went to school and Michelin was looking for someone, so they invited me back. I came back as a team lead. So I continued there for a while, got outsourced to IBM. The Michelin contract ended, so I went on to another contract. And my dad passed away in 2017, and I think that was probably the first major catalyst for me, where I looked at my life and I thought, something's missing here. There's some meaning that you're not quite grasping. And when he passed away, it was like the universe telling me, life is short. If there's something you want to do, you better get at it. And so I saw a therapist for a while. I was miserable. Like I thought, I have everything that I've ever wanted, and I can't seem to find my smile. What's going on? I'm convinced I was probably depressed for about a decade, but I kept doing, right? A human doing what has to be done. Kids have to be fed. Okay, picked up this. I just kept doing things. So in 2018 in May, I had a chat with my husband one night and I said, I'm leaving. And I said, I need space. I said, I'm going to take a month, maybe 2, just to figure out what it is I need to do next. And when I left, it was like all of the shoulds and have tos and responsibilities that I had convinced myself were so important fell away. And I felt like I had not clarity, it wasn't there yet, but I had space and I could breathe for the first time in a very long time. So I chose not to go back. And which was huge, and really, like, there was, we weren't a family that fought. Like, there wasn't any of that going on. There was just something missing for me, and I knew I had to follow that thread and figure out what was next for me and what was my life all about. I call it a midlife crisis, I guess, and I guess maybe that's what it was. So I left.
I want to hang on. I want to interrupt. I think that's stepping into courage. Isn't that the definition of courage? It's this idea of, it's not that there is no fear, it's that you're willing to face the fear.
Yeah. And for me, it was a matter of having to stand alone. And it was tough. Like, my relationship with my daughters crumbled. Like, they did not understand at all. And now 5 years later, that's kind of, we're on pretty good footing now. But so at that time, I really didn't know what I wanted. So I thought I was going to lose my job. I thought I was going to like kind of a resource action where they were reducing headcount, and it didn't happen. So I got a job that was going to sustain me. And then that's when I made the decision, okay, maybe I can do this. I can afford to, I won't have to live in my car. I can afford to live somewhere. Kind of thing. So I took this job. And then after a year, I realized, no, this is not doing it either. I needed to go deeper. It wasn't the things that I was doing, it was who I was. And I needed to figure out how to move through my world in a way that was important to me and meaningful to me. So on my 55th birthday, my gift to myself was to call my director and say, I'm leaving. And I'm so lucky, because not only did I decide to leave, so she said, well, you know what? Don't leave. Like, don't just quit. Like, why don't you take a sabbatical? And because I had just turned 55 rather, there was only one I qualified for. So she said, we'll put an application in, you can take X number of months off, and then you can at least decide at the end if you want to come back or not.
Nice.
And I said, okay, great idea. So we applied, we sent the paperwork off to personnel, they weren't answering. And the reason they weren't answering is because they were getting ready to offer an early retirement package to anybody that wanted it who was 55. Oh. So I jumped on it. I was the first person at IBM to hit the button. Within minutes of getting the email, and so not only was I leaving my job, but I was getting a little bag of money going out the door, which was freaking awesome. Like, so again, I thought, this is the universe telling me that this is what I have to do. I had no idea what was next, but I had a kernel of an idea. I wanted to get on my Can-Am Spyder, and I wanted to drive from Cape Spear to Tofino, BC.
Wow.
And the way that the package was being rolled out at IBM, I had to stay until September. So that was going to be too late to do a coast to coast. So I did the maritime leg, was my practice leg. during the end of June and beginning of July of 2019. So I camped, I did a bunch of things. I got the kinks worked out. I knew what equipment I was going to need. I worked until the 29th of August. I handed my laptop in, cleaned my apartment the next day. And on the 31st of August, I hit the road for Tofino all by myself.
Wow.
Without a reservation anywhere. I think I might have made a reservation for a campsite the first night in Mont Laurier, and that was it. And spent so the first part of it was really awesome, but it was the Western leg that, like, I have never felt such freedom in my entire life. Like, I felt like a little kid in a candy store. Like, not only do I want everything, but I can have everything. Like, it was the most amazing feeling. And I thought, if I could bottle this, so I was in contact with my family, like, and my husband and I we're on great terms. He looked after my dog when I was gone, so it was I felt like I wasn't letting anybody down. I in retrospect, I probably was to an extent, but for the first time in my life, I was putting me first, and not the haves, tos, and the shoulds, but the, what do I want to do today? Who do I want to be today? And going and making it happen. So I returned back in early October. I got back from out west, and it was, again, the most incredible journey, because we have the most incredible country. And I learned what I was made of, like just incredible, like sleeping under the stars, and seeing a mama bear and two cubs coming at me on the highway on Vancouver Island, and putting my toes in the Pacific Ocean because I wanted to go coast to coast kind of thing. It was amazing. It was lonely at times, but I never felt completely alone. But I'm a talker, and I like to have conversations. So the poor guy in the booth at the campground in Tofino, I talked his ear off. I just came coast to coast. It was just.
I'm kind of laughing too, because your role with our team is to talk.
It's my superpower. It's my superpower. So I got back from my journeys. I arrived back in Montreal, and I was jobless and homeless. I had all of my possessions in a storage locker in Lachine. Didn't know where I was going to live. I hadn't found an apartment yet. So I slept on my husband's sofa for a week. And then the dog and I hit the road, and we went to the Maritimes to visit my mom for 3 weeks. And while I was there, a friend of mine texted me and said, "Are you still looking for a place?" He had a roommate in his basement apartment who decided abruptly to leave. So there was a place available. So that's where I was living when I was trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? I'm only 55. I own nothing except a car and a Spyder and a dog. Like, what am I going to do? So at Christmas that year, I remember reading What Color Is Your Parachute? I'd never read that in university. I'd heard about it, but I didn't read it. And I got to the end of the book, Natalie, and I thought, I still don't know what color my parachute is. What's next? So I started rooting around, and the idea of coaching kind of came to me one day, and I started looking around. I talked to a couple of companies, but honestly, Canada Coach Academy was the only one that really seemed to resonate. And I spoke to Roberta at the time, and then I spoke to you, and I thought, I don't know why, but this is what I'm going to do next.
You spoke to Roberta. Oh my God.
I spoke to
Back
Roberta.
when we didn't really have an admissions team.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It was me and Roberta doing everything.
I know, but they were such great conversations, right?
Yeah. She's so sweet.
And I tend to kind of go by my gut now. I had forgotten over a lifetime to listen to my body with those aches and pains, and those little taps that say, "Excuse me, I need you to pay attention here." And now I tend to go with it. Again, I think calculated risks, but I thought, you know what? I can use some training. I'm only 55. What do I want to do next? So I took your program, and again, absolutely fell in love with it. Like, the people that I met and the conversations that I got to have really solidified that I was heading in the right direction. It also made me realize that it wasn't the job, it wasn't my marriage, it wasn't all those things on the to-do list. It was the way I was approaching my life. And I have a belief that what happened to me is that I lost sight of my core, what was truly important to me. And I think, beliefs, values, and attitudes are learned. And I think that the further we get away from that authentic core, the more risk we have to be unhappy. I think the closer we are to it, decisions are easier when for me now, I know that I believe that people are capable of infinite possibility, right? The sky is the limit. And that doesn't mean that I expect to wake up tomorrow as, a 36-year-old male CEO. It just means that for the things that are important to me, I believe that there's any number of ways to manifest those, any number of ways to make those happen. And that's what I want other people to know. That's why I'm a coach. Like, that's why, and so the people that I love to talk to in particular, probably because of my own experience, are women in their middle age that are thinking, something's missing. How do I find that? And we have to find it for ourselves. It's not something that anybody can hand to me on a silver platter. I had to go through everything that I went through to get where I am now. And to be sure now, when something comes up, I can recognize something as an opportunity or a yes or a no a lot easier than I could before. I have a better understanding for who I am and what I can live with.
Wow, I'm just so well, I'm happy for you. That's my first thought, to have gone through that self-reflection, and of course happy that you ended up with Canada Coach Academy, because at the end of your program, we happen to be looking to grow our sales or admissions team, and Roberta was the one who said, "What about Wendy?"
Yeah,
I
that's so
remember that.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to tell people now that I came here and you couldn't get rid of me.
Yeah. She came, but she never left.
And then my story didn't end because it continued to evolve, right? So so after about 2 years, I started dating my husband again.
Right.
As of June of this year, we're reconciled.
Yeah.
The relationship with my daughters has changed. They're their own people now. Like, I don't get to dictate what they believe and that sort of thing. But we've come to a place where there's respect and there's conversation and there's celebration. It's been quite a ride. I've moved a bunch of times. I've learned a lot about myself, and I continue to do so. That's the thing that is most exciting to me, Natalie. Like, I'm going to be 60 years old in April. And at a point in life where most people are thinking about winding down and what's the fun stuff, I just want to keep learning. I want to keep reading books and talking to people and seeing how I can assist people on their journey. Like, even the volunteer work that I do. Like, I have a couple of clients with Up With Women, and I work with the Writers Collective of Canada to helping people find their voice. That's what I'm all about now, and I absolutely love it.
Wow. And let's not forget that this journey culminated into a book, a beautiful book that you wrote.
Yes. And that would never have seen the light of day had I not taken this program. I came back from, in fact, I started toying with the idea of a book in November of 2019. So I was at my mom's place and I pulled out my laptop and I started typing, and I thought, could I do this? But then, the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome would have absolutely squelched that had I not been coached with people that said, what do you need to do next? And what's possible here? And ask me those great questions. And what I've discovered about myself, the really golden part for coaching for me, is that when I make a promise to myself and somebody else witnesses it, that coach, I will move heaven and earth to make that happen.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And I know myself well enough.
Statistic, Wendy. Yeah, the greatest success and goal achievement is being having a witness to your accountability to self. So you're exactly. Pretty good statistic.
Yep.
And
so
I realized I wish I had my copy of your book. It's on my bookshelf in their office.
I have it right here.
Okay, good. Yeah, I love it. Round trip. I love the cover. I remember when you first showed us that cover. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's actually a painting of Canada that I did myself while I was taking your program, because I hadn't picked up my paintbrushes in probably a decade, and we had to do the coach selfie.
Your ego.
I thought I'll paint. So I did. So, and then the book, I call it part midlife crisis, part love letter to Canada, because it was, again, it was such a special time in my life. And I'm very proud of it. I mean, it's not a Pulitzer, but I'm very proud of this book. And it really, it kind of goes through my journey from the time my dad got ill and passed away till I came back. I think I have to update it now because so much has happened in the last 4 years that I could write several more chapters.
Mm. I kind of want to say that, your journey in self-discovery, and also the fact that you've been able to nurture, and I'm sure it wasn't always easy, but you nurtured the relationships that were most important to you, even while you were on that journey. And I think, to me, I guess what's coming up for me is that that's an example of what we talk about in coaching, which is that willingness to not know what's next, and this open to change, open to possibilities. And the fact that you've been able to reconcile with your husband, and mend those relationships with your daughters, it's so beautiful. And I just think that, like, I feel that coaching is a journey of resilience. When we are coached, we are building resilience, but we're also, like, returning to our core, right? We're asking those questions about values, beliefs, and meaning, and what's important to us. So
absolutely. And it's funny, you're right. Like, some of those sometimes were so tough. Like, I had family members that wouldn't talk to me for a while. And that was unexpected and probably the most crushing thing I've ever had to endure. And all I could do was keep trying, because I cannot, I can't force somebody else to come around to the way that I'm looking at things. All I can do is model for other people who I am, and by being my best version of myself, then maybe they will see something that at some point in time will resonate with them. And sometimes people just aren't ready, and I don't get to dictate that. But that was really tough. And I remember even before I started out on my journey, there's a part in the book where I talk about having a complete meltdown about 2 days before I was cleaning up my apartment, because I thought, what have I done? Because I had no
I can picture there.
like, and I wrote in my journal one night, and I thought, like, I really had no idea what was going to come next. And to have given myself the gift to stick with that, because it would have been easy to just, pack up all my stuff and go home and live with my mom. But that still wouldn't have helped me find that thing that I was looking for. And I continue to look for, right? I continue to refine it. And I also recognize that I get to make new choices with every breath. I'm not the same person I was 10 minutes ago, kind of thing. If I decide to make a new choice and head in a new direction, I'm much more cognizant of the fact, though, that there's people that I want to make sure stay in my journey going forward. So I have to discuss and make sure that everybody's on board sometimes before I make decisions. But at the same time, it was a gift, and it was a golden opportunity for me to have just chosen to stand by myself, as myself, and then it was like reintroducing myself to everybody. Like, they suddenly didn't know who I was because I wasn't acting the same, and I wasn't playing the same roles that I did before. And it was a tough transition, but it was, honestly, at the end of the day, it was so worth it.
Well, and aren't those the ones that we learn the most from? The tough transitions, the hardships that we face. And so I just think that, you're kind of like the walking poster child of coaching. This is what it is. There is no destination. It's a journey, right? It's this
Exactly.
path. It's yeah. And so you find yourself today on our beautiful Coach Academy team. We are, I can't say enough about the people that we get to work with every day, but not only the people we get to work with, but the people you get to talk to every day.
It's incredible.
People who are looking to become coaches, right? They're walking their own paths, coming from their own transitions. And, some of them are, have professional objectives, some of them have personal objectives, but isn't it an incredibly privileged seat to sit in, to be able to talk to people about their journeys?
It is absolutely astounding. Every day I'm amazed at the people that I meet, the people that I get to talk to, like that have had like powerful positions in places, or people that have come through amazing things that I don't think I could have survived. Like it really is incredible. And the common factor is that they all want to help other people, and they all want to continue their own evolution, which is so refreshing, because it's not something that you find in many professions.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to find a lot of jockeying, and I spent time in corporate and was used to having to have answers and solutions. And with coaching, it flipped that whole thing on its ear. So I'm talking to people all the time that are asking themselves the tough questions, and they want to help other people by asking them that. And it's such a supportive and nurturing and loving community. Like it's incredible.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's that saying? If you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams, right? The
Yeah.
movie. Um, that's kind of what I feel like happened. You know?
It's amazing.
We kind of built this community that I couldn't predict, but it actually became something on its own. Do you know what I mean? Like it's because of the people, because of I guess the kinds of people that we attract.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know what it is, but all I know is that you're in like I used to be, the admissions person for Canada Coach Academy, because that's, it was me talking to everybody, bringing everybody on board. And I can probably remember, I'm going to guess 90% of those conversations still today. And it was years ago, right?
Yep.
But because they were so powerful, because they were so personal, I guess, in nature. And it's what, I was in another conversation with one of our students, Lydia, who happened to be on our podcast last week. And she said, I love what she said. She said, coaching allowed her to transform surface conversations into deep conversations. Every conversation became an opportunity to ask a question that could lead to a deeper moment versus how are you? Those transactional functional questions and conversations we have. And that was a powerful shift for her, because she was craving that. And I think that those conversations that we have in those, with those people who are looking to become coaches, whether they come here or not, doesn't matter. They want to be a coach, they want to help others, they're looking for a path to do that. That's wonderful. We're here to support that. And that's how I always approached it. It wasn't about, I mean, in fact, I had a whole cohort say to me once, Natalie, you're the worst salesperson in the world. I said, well, yeah, you're all here, aren't you? It was so funny, because all I do is talk about what I love,
Yeah.
And it was,
Well, it's funny. I've received emails from people apologizing that they decided not to come to Canada Coach Academy for various reasons, because they love what they hear.
Yeah.
Like, we and the community is so amazing. I remember when I started, and I had spent all that time in corporate. I was a team lead, I was a service delivery manager, but being like almost scared to have those first couple of coaching conversations, because I was afraid to kind of break something. Like, what am I going to do wrong here, right? But you build such a rapport with the people that you're in class with, and that's who I started with. I think that's who most people start with. It's like talking to a friend at the beginning. And then you get your toes wet. So then you reach out into the global village and you meet the most amazing people, and you get a chance to see how they approach the conversation. And like, because peer coaching in my mind is the most brilliant approach. It's incredible. And like, I did 80 of my hours, my first 100 hours in the global village, like, because I wasn't working anymore and I didn't have a team that I could kind of coach during the day. And, people weren't talking to me. So it was, it was a great place to be.
The silver lining. It's funny. Yeah, well, yeah, and now we have people across Canada, across the globe, and we are, fortunate enough to have so many different walks of life come to the community, you know, professions and
Yes,
hobbies and, you know, just different profiles that are, so there's a great opportunity to coach different kinds of people.
exactly.
Like even demographics, like, yeah, it's just such a great, and it's all virtual, right? So it's all from the comfort of your home, which I also think that the pandemic in your cohort was the transition point for us, you know, to reach more people. Because before that, we were going on site to Toronto, to Calgary, to, you know, Montreal, and running on-site workshops, which are logistically really hard for people to make time for and get to, and more expensive
Yes.
for them. No hotels or car or parking or travel, and it was, and food, like it was all the online world was our gift, you know. What we thought was going to be a crazy challenge turned out to be the greatest gift, that we could reach more people and live our mission, right, to multiply the impact of coaching.
Exactly.
This is, you know, the avenue to do that. So we have, you know, a few minutes left. You know, I think I've kept you for longer than I intended. So
I'm a talker.
yeah. Well, it's a joy. It's a joy to talk to you. And I guess what I want to ask you is, what do you think? What do you want people to know about life and change and coaching? Like, what is it that you've learned?
That if there sometimes big scary changes are not only they're sometimes the biggest gifts that we can give ourselves, and you can get through them, like, and sometimes we just have to like detach ourselves from outcome, you know, work towards something. And I believe with all of my heart and soul now that the closer we get to figuring out who we are at our core, the more abundant our lives are. It's just anything becomes possible when we know ourselves.
Okay, I just want to end there because I love that. Anything becomes possible when we know ourselves. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you do every day for our community and for the people here on the team. And yeah, I just really appreciate getting to, you know, share you with the world in this
thank you.
our little world, whoever listens to this podcast.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.